To Dumfries then I came, where a cauldron of unholy love sang all about mine ears. This music crept by me upon the waters, the sound of sweet airs that give delight and hurt not. Oh, how they hum about mine ears, enrapturing my 6 senses, and I would not rule out 7. Only minutes later, after I had got off the train at Dumfries, the nagging doubts surfaced, just as they had during my one and only visit many years before. I wanted to like Dumfries, and I had hoped that Dumfries, in turn, would like me. Perhaps that was why everything began to unravel. Perhaps, with the guiding hand of fate, I might now be able to right some of the wrongs lingering in the residue of the past. These thoughts were going through my mind as the rain and wind intensified. The weather rapidly deteriorated, just as it had the last time. I soon realized I was going the wrong way. I had no umbrella, but noticed, despite the deluge, neither had anyone else. Finding a pub appeared to be the logical solution. Most of the local population shared this view. Consequently, finding a seat was now a challenge. With pint in one hand, a whiskey in the other, I noticed one table seemed to be free in the far corner. Only after downing half of the ale, and then the scotch, did I notice there were several battered instruments around me, leaning against an equally battered table. As I was considering this, one of the staff approached and asked, "Open mic?" I was too astounded to offer a prompt reply. Before he continued, 15 minutes max, no sectarian chants or swearing." He was about to turn and go when suddenly a thought must have struck him. And no poetry. Could he have remembered me after all these years? I wasn't sure what to expect, but certainly hadn't anticipated this. I had no intention of performing in public, open mic or no open mic. I would have a quick pint and then leave discreetly. Just as I was finishing this next pint and a wee dram, actually a double this time, the same barman handed me a piece of paper. I was flummoxed. I obviously must have looked distressed. "Bar voucher," he said in a low tone. "One before you play, and one after if it goes down well with the punters." I was so taken aback, I put the voucher to immediate use and then returned to the table. The instruments were now accompanied by some burly, bearded musicians who appeared to have got through quite a few bar vouchers already. They were a hearty bunch and bade me welcome. I wondered if I would be held to the commitment. How difficult would it be to drift across the crowded floor and out into the anonymity of the streets? Whilst ruminating on this perplexity, another whiskey was put in my hand, and I was wished good health. In their eyes, I was a rival performer, but yet they had the goodness and sense of camaraderie to boost my ailing spirits. An explanation was undoubtedly called for, but the words were not forthcoming. I had morals. They deserved to be told it was all a misunderstanding. Happens all the time. Then I realized the place was filling up, and I would be long gone before they noticed. Just another case of mistaken identity on a busy Friday night. No harm done. But then all was made clear. One of their number could not make it. I was later informed he was helping local police with their inquiries. Signals had become crossed. They unfortunately believed that I was the 11th hour substitute. I was now in unforeseen deep water and speechless. Yet another bells was thrust before me, and I still had the post-performance voucher in my pocket. I was well and truly snookered. Minutes later, we were beckoned towards the entertainment space. Stage would be a misrepresentation. And then, to deepen my sense of shock, I was handed a banjo. There was a short, unimpressive tuning-up process in which I did not participate. How could I? And then the show got underway. A lanky hippie type shook his tambourine for all he was worth. The guitarist, I now noticed, wore a Status Quo t-shirt, gave a few bars of something resembling Matchstick Men. The drummer beamed and rattled away. Feeling more at home now, I waved the banjo above my head and punched the air while the singer commenced Sylvia's Mother. We were in motion. The bashing and twanging and shaking created a certain bonhomie, something verging on an adrenaline rush. Some of the punters joined in. Some clapped. Some even started a jig. And then, 2 or 3 minutes later, the first number was over. Perhaps our vocalist couldn't remember all the lyrics. There was a 10 or 20-second pause, and upon a coded signal, the second offering was upon us. "My generation," announced our front man. It sounded, for all the world, just like the first. I felt I couldn't repeat my act of holding the banjo aloft, so I took up the pose of Rodin's Thinker. The singer came in very, very late with the opening verse of "The green, green grass of home," to the amazement of all and sundry. The song was a local favourite, apparently. However, our frontman had wrong-footed us, but we took it all in our stride. Somehow, the Quo Man was getting away with his idiosyncratic interpretation, and I was feeling my knees go and wondering how long I could maintain my artistic gymnastics. And then the silence descended. We all glanced at our muted vocalist. He looked crestfallen. The words would not come. Tambourine Man threw his thing into the air with his right hand, but failed miserably to catch it with his left. The drummer produced one last aggressive hammering before walking away, dejected. I straightened up to rub my aching joints. Only the incongruous sound of Matchstick Man continued. It had all happened before, and we would almost seamlessly be replaced. I glanced at the banjo, and a wave of Pete Townsendism washed over me. Thoughts of finishing with a flourish flashed through my mind. I suddenly yearned to vandalize the drum kit. However, the urge lasted but a fleeting moment, as a torrent of violent cursing seemed to get nearer and nearer. A very tall lassie in an overly tight t-shirt made a beeline for the Tambourine Man. He was well over 6 foot in height, but she could match that. And in weight, she clearly had the advantage. With a loud, angry grunt, she smashed her handbag over his head, continuing her foul tirade. I could have sworn I heard the dull clunk of metal. Within moments, 2 beefy bouncers had her by the shoulders, and she was slung from the premises unceremoniously. I was then informed that the 2 of them supposedly had a date on the other side of town. But Tambourine Man was all mixed up. The vicious Amazon worked for the benefits department and had been severely warned about her temper. But she would never back down. She relished confrontation, I was told. The locals assured me that all would be well in a day or 2. Nobody in Dumfries was taken aback by a bit of grievous bodily harm every now and again. Tambourine Man was bleeding profusely as he stooped down on one knee, chin in hand, looking as if he were weighing up his options on the putting green. Our guitarist gave us another dose of Matchstick Men. Maybe it was his nerves. And then I was through the door and out on the streets of Dumfries once more. The good-natured citizens were largely in staggering mode, and the odd verse could be heard as they wobbled between taverns. They were on the crest of a wave, while self-preservation suggested that I should hit the sack. People talk of the sleep of the just. If only I'd had something approaching that. I breakfasted on grief the following morn. Its limits were unspoken, but well defined. I awoke with a diabolical head and little appetite. Browsing through the local newspaper whilst waiting for my haggis to be served, I noticed that Queen of the South were playing at home to Arbroath that afternoon. I felt compelled to attend the match. 30 minutes later, I reached into my pocket to pay the bill and found I still had a bar voucher. I couldn't help wondering if it might still be valid.